Welcome to the Knowledge for Men show. Your life will never be the same.
Your level of success will seldom exceed your level of personal development.
I want to die empty of regret. I want to die empty of my best work. We don't understand who we are. Instead, we're living out somebody else's narrative.
What one man can do, another man can do. If it's been done, it can be done again.
Being yourself and being your truest, most authentic self in every moment. If it scares you or makes you a little afraid, do it. Follow your heart and your gut.
The first stage, I think, is finding you, like finding out who I am today.
Stuff will not work. You will have things that fail. Success is when you're a happy, fulfilled person. How do you define success?
It's your life, and you are the creator of the movie script that is your life story.
Would you want to live the same life over and over again 100 times over? What do you want to make out of your life? Who do you want to be? Look, life is short. You got what you got, and you really have to go for your own. And nothing will change unless you change. Guys, I'm helping men make that change at my intensive retreats in San Diego, California. Go to kfmretreat.com to learn more and be a part of a program that is transforming men's lives into the most powerful version of themselves. Again, that's kfmretreat.com. All right, guys, welcome to the show. I'm here with Marc David. He's the founder and primary teacher of the Institute for the Psychology of Eating. He's a leading visionary, teacher, and consultant in nutritional psychology and the author of the classic, groundbreaking, and best-selling book, Nourishing Wisdom and the Slowdown Diet. For over 3 decades, Marc has been an innovator in eating psychology and nutrition. So glad to have you here, Marc.
Andrew, thank you so much for the invite. I'm really glad to be here. I'm looking forward to this.
All right. Glad to have you here on the show. So we're going to kickstart the show off with a favorite success quote of the guest or something that you've lived by. So what do you got for us? And then explain to the audience why you chose that.
Okay. This probably doesn't fall under the typical category of success quote, but it's a quote that the first time I heard it, it just grabbed me by the nuts and has kept me ever since. And it's a quote from the Bhagavad Gita, which is kind of like the Bible in India. And Krishna, who's sort of like the wise man, almost like the Jesus figure, is the chariot driver for Arjuna, who's like the quintessential warrior. And so I'm just giving you a little background for the quote. And Arjuna has to go to war, and he's like the greatest warrior. He's the general, but Krishna drives his chariot. He's kind of like his advisor. And Arjuna's all upset because he has to go to war and kill people. And even though that's his job, he doesn't like it. But this war is inevitable. It has to be fought. It's kind of good versus evil. And as Arjuna's lamenting to Krishna, why the hell are we doing this? Krishna looks at him and he says, listen, the whole world is an illusion. However, you must treat the illusion as if it were real. So he's acknowledging, on the one hand, this is all made up and we're all going to die someday and this is all crazy nonsense and we shouldn't have to fight a war. This is all illusion. But somehow living on planet Earth, the illusion has to be treated as if it's real. You have kids maybe, you got to treat that as real. You got a broken bone, that's real. So I'm always trying to live from both sides of that equation. Life is crazy. It's insane. and it doesn't make any freaking sense on one level. And on another level, we have to give it meaning. We have to see the craziness of it on the one hand, the illusory nature, but on the other hand, we have to sort of play act that it's real and move through life. So that's one of the quotes that really impacted me, and I really live by it.
I like that. That's really, I like the background. You gave us history behind the quote and the build-up. That was a powerful quote. And I'm wondering if the whole world is an illusion, does this kind of like don't sweat the small stuff or like have fun with what you have? I'm feeling like it's kind of like a playful analogy for something.
I think it can be all of it, because there's places where, don't sweat the small stuff. There's places where, we have to take a deep breath, have some fun, and enjoy this life. But there's also places where we got to work pretty damn hard to make things happen. I wish I was born into a world where it just kind of rolls out the red carpet and says, hey, Marc, hey, Andrew, hey, guys, you're good at this. Here's the money to do what you love. Here's all the opportunities. Here's all the hot chicks that you want. Here it is, and here's the menu. You can just order it up. That would be really sweet. And, I think I expected that on some weird level when I was a kid, and always watched as, wait a second, this world is, I got to figure this out. How do I be happy? How do I find out who the heck I am? What's going on? Why are people so insane? Why are adults thinking that they're smart and they're really not? So for me, from an early age as a kid, I was trying to answer the question, what the heck is going on? There's got to be a better way.
Let's dive into that. Let's keep going on with that right there and kind of dive into your story of how you got started with what you do, and then we'll kind of pull out some lessons that you've learned from your story.
Yeah, thanks for asking that. I'm a lover of story, and in particular, I'm a lover of our story, your story, my story. Even if somebody is boring as hell to you, once you get into their story and who they actually are and where they come from and what went down, to me, that's fascinating. And in a way, my living has been made out of listening and understanding people's story. I probably spent 30 years doing counseling, coaching, therapy for people with, health issues, nutrition concerns, eating issues. But really what that's all about is being a detective and getting into people's stories. So, my story is I was born into this world asthmatic and deeply immunocompromised. I almost died like a handful of times in infancy. And weirdly enough, I have a memory, a very clear memory in life. I was only like a few days old, and I was being rushed back to the hospital. I couldn't breathe. I was in the front seat of the car. My mother's holding me. My dad's driving the car. I remember their conversation, and I repeated it to them, word for word. I remember the color of the blanket I was wrapped around. I remember not being able to breathe, having no fear. I was just in this infantile experience of sensation. And the first 13 years of my life were spent asthmatic, allergic, not being able to run with other kids, and getting taken from doctor to doctor, trying to figure out what the heck was wrong with me. Honestly, I think it was, medical intervention. My system collapsed after I was vaccinated, which is an interesting thing that's happening way more than people know. But I was asking questions from the beginning of, why am I sick? Why can't all these smart people in white coats with white beards help me? What's going on? And at some point, and I remember that point, it turns out I was 5 years old. I remember hearing a rumor that fruits and vegetables were good for you, and I was raised on nothing natural or real. I had never seen a fruit or a vegetable. It was all, I kid you not, artificial food. And I asked my mother to buy me apples and peas and carrots in a can, because somehow that was my 5-year-old imagining of fruits and vegetables. My mother complied. Coincidence or not, my health started changing. But I had this magical experience as a 5-year-old that I have some power here. I am not beholden to the adult world to do everything for me. And not only that, there's this weird magic that can happen with my body when it comes to food. Like, to me, that was just absolutely fascinating. So I was off to the races. And that, for me, catalyzed and started my career. Eventually I went into nutrition. I was in medical school for a year, and I wanted to be a nutritional kind of doctor. And I was in medical school in 1980. And back then, there wasn't any holistic health really. And I was dying in medical school. It was kind of a nightmare for me. It wasn't about healing. It wasn't about health. I had 150 fellow students, and most of them were in it for the money. They just wanted to be a doctor. I was fascinated with the art and science of healing. So anyway, I ended up leaving school, and I vowed when I left school, by the way, it almost killed half my family because, everybody wanted me to be a doctor. But I promised myself I will never sit in another classroom at this point learning something that I don't want to learn. I want to take back the power. And I want to find a way of making money in this world where I'm doing something good, where I'm serving other people, and I'm making a good living doing something I'm passionate about. I didn't want to be a mindless drone. I didn't want to do what my father did, which was commute an hour and a half every day to work at a job that he couldn't stand so he can raise his kids. And, the guy was amazing, was a warrior. I don't know if I could ever do that, but, I decided I just wanted to find a better way. So that's probably a long-winded answer to your question. I don't even know if I answered it.
No, it gives us an idea of, I'm seeing this common theme of struggle and then kind of liberation by taking responsibility of your life. What's funny is at a young age, it seems like you took control of your health at age 5 by cleaning up your diet.
It's crazy, absolutely crazy. But here's the thing, I also remember being a very angry kid because I got angry about my situation. And not only was I angry about my own health and angry that I couldn't be helped by all the experts, I was angry at the world. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York in the 1960s, and there was a lot of racial war and a lot of gang violence, and I saw a lot of horrible things going on around me, and I didn't like it. It didn't make sense to me, and I couldn't stand it. And I just was angry. Why isn't this world a better place? Why isn't my health better? Why are people hurting each other? And at some point, I realized, and this was probably not till my 20s, I started asking the question really, really earnestly, where the hell does this anger come from? And what do I do with it? Because I could easily become an angry kid and do what a lot of other young men were doing, which was engage in violence and beat the crap out of each other. I could also go into crime. Better still, I could also go do drugs and just numb out from my anger, or I could just be a mean, bitter person, which didn't feel good to me. And I think a lot of my 20s were spent really looking at, being in a lot of confusion about what do I do with these emotions? And I always knew on some level that my anger had a lot of power in it. And what I came to learn that anger is energy, and that energy just needs to be transmuted. So in a weird way, I'm successful in my field. I have a lot of notoriety. I got literally like millions of followers, on my fan pages and our email lists for the work that I do, for the books that I write. And at the end of the day, honestly, I think what's fueled me is my anger, because I'm angry at the health system, angry at the medical system, angry at how the world conducts itself. But I've taken that anger and said, okay, well, what the heck am I going to do about it? How can I turn that into an energy that's going to propel me and find solutions and do something better? And when I started to do that, that's pretty much when my life turned around.
So turning that anger into fuel.
Bingo.
Yeah, you talked about in your 20s having a lot of anger, and I think it's a common place. I've been talking to a lot of people in my community through email and through one-on-one coaching, and I'm finding that like there's a lot of guys having a lot of potential. Like they feel like they have so much energy, but struggling to find a channel to go down and really go in 100%, and they don't want to go down the wrong path and commit. How did you find your path? Like, how did you know that this was going to be the thing, or did you even know?
Beautiful question. I want to quote a line from Buddhism, from the Buddha. And Buddha said, the path is made by walking on it. So in a lot of ways, you don't know. In a lot of ways, we don't know, when you get in your car and you listen to Siri or you do MapQuest, you don't know if you're going to end up in the right place. It's you take a step and you move in the direction. I think for me, what I had, and maybe I was born this way, maybe I developed it, but I trusted my deeper knowing. And even when I didn't trust in my deeper knowing, I would choose at some point to trust in it. Meaning I trusted in my knowing that there has to be a better way. I trusted in their knowing that I don't want to just be another drone and another zombie who's walking through the world doing a job that I can't stand. There's got to be a better way. Now, I don't know what that way is, but I trusted my instinct that there has to be a better way. And I made a commitment in my teens that I would spend my life, if it took me that long, living a life that I felt was worth living. And I grappled with the fact that, again, the world ain't rolling out the red carpet. And that was a lot of my anger. It's like, wait, as young men, a young man wants a direction, wants good mentors, wants good people around him, wants good men around him saying, okay, go straight, turn left, turn right. Here's a good way to do things. Most of us don't have that role model. I didn't have that. I had some love in my life for sure. And yeah, I had some good men in my life. My dad cared, my uncles cared. But we're born into a world, that's really insane. And if you're a man, if you're a young man, if you're an old man, I don't care what age you are, and you're angry, I will bet $1 million that you have every damn good reason to be angry. There's a lot to be angry about. A lot of us get depressed. I got no issue with depression whatsoever. There's a lot to be depressed about. And it's not personal. We tend to take our personal issues too personally, because when you have millions of humans around the world being angry about what's going on the planet, that's not unique. When you have millions of people on antidepressant medications, that's not unique. It's a collective issue. So for me, I just made the choice to trust in my inner voice. Against all odds, I will trust in my inner voice. And there were times when I hitchhiked around the country. After I left medical school, I was 22 years old, and I had previously had my whole future mapped out ahead of me. Okay, you're going to go to medical school, then you're going to do your internship, then you're going to move back to New York City, and you're going to make all this money. I'm going to buy a car, I'm going to buy a boat, and I'm going to have a hot wife. And I'm going to do good things in this world. And I just had it mapped out. And then all of a sudden, I don't know who I'm going to be and how I'm going to do this. And I decided I wanted to learn. I wanted to learn from people who are really practicing real natural health, real natural medicine. And to do that, I had to find them. I had to travel to all these weird clinics all around the country. And I literally put on a backpack and travel for 2 years. And I'd make money along the way. I would literally, there'd be times I had no money in my pocket. I'd hitchhike. I'd end up in a fruit orchard somewhere. And I would ask the farmer if I could pick fruits and make a little cash. There were days when all I ate was peaches, and made $20.
Probably some of the happiest, funnest times of your life.
Totally. And the best peaches, man, fresh off the tree.
Organic.
So, right. So what I'm saying is I trusted and I pushed the pedal to the metal on trusting my inner voice. Because the truth is, and men are not really taught this, but each one of us is radical. Each one of us has an amazing destiny. Each one of us is crazy, and I mean that in a good way. Each one of us has what turns us on. Each one of us has a powerful sex drive. Each one of us has powerful desires. We have hopes, we have dreams, and those oftentimes get suppressed. Or we say, no, I can't do this. This is impossible. And it's kind of digging deep and really capturing what's your dream? What's your desire? What's your truth? What kind of life do you want to live? And what do you have to do to deserve that? Because there's another level where I started noticing that, as men, we have to earn it. I've just come to that conclusion. People who don't earn what they have generally squander it. It's not a new story when somebody's born into a lot of wealth and they're a trust fund baby. They're often impotent in their life because they've never been challenged. They don't have to work hard. When we have to work for our dreams, when we have to work for our fantasies, when we have to work for our deepest desires, there is a beautiful satisfaction that comes from the other end. And my life is proof, for me at least. I left professional school. I left medical school. I chose to go into the field of nutrition and be counterculture in that field. So I was talking about holistic nutrition back in the day when it was unpopular. People were mean to me. All the scientists and all the thought leaders in that realm, labeled me as a kook. And to me, I knew in my guts that what I was doing was real and it had value. So my point is, the whole world could be against you. And you have to believe in yourself, because oftentimes that's what helps us kind of rise out of the ashes, is you believing in you.
Yeah. And it's, if we don't do that, then that anger that we talked about earlier, if we don't turn that into fuel and believe in ourselves, then I think it can easily turn into depression. If nothing's done, then I think that anger just turns into depression, and I feel like it really just adds up. And you can tell when you look at someone, and you could just see it in their face, in their eyes, that, hey, like, this is someone who just let that depression add up over time, and they didn't go after what they didn't believe in themselves about what they could achieve.
Yeah, it's so true. And in a strange way, that's why we need each other. That's why this kind of conversation and this podcast that you're doing is so important, because one thing that's been happening in the world for a while now is we're being taught that your problem is your issue. And if you're depressed, there's something wrong with you. And there's nothing wrong with you. And if you're depressed, I guarantee you have every good reason to be depressed. And it ain't just about your life. It's about the world you're in. It's what you see around you. It's probably your upbringing. You might not have had the best parents. You might not have got what you needed. You might have been abused. You might have been hit. You might have been sexually abused. I mean, people go through a lot of nonsense and a lot of nasty stuff as children. And the fact that we could even make it into our 20s or 30s or 40s, for a lot of us, is an accomplishment. But what I'm saying is, this is a time in the world where we have to band together more and more and kind of support each other and share knowledge and go, hey, what do you think about depression? What do you think about apathy? What do you think about anger? How are you dealing with it? And I really want to emphasize that it personalizes in us. So anger finds a home in us. Apathy finds a home in us. Depression finds a home in us. But you didn't invent that. I didn't invent that. Long after we're gone, those things are going to still exist. It lands in us. It's part and parcel of the world. And our job is to alchemize that. Our job as men, and I'm saying this straight up. So I'm a 56-year-old guy just reporting from my part of the journey. So no matter what, so if you're younger than me and you're listening to this, I'm just you, but just a bunch of years later down the line. And I promise you, I've worked hard at this shit. I've worked hard at career. I've worked hard at finding meaningful work. I've worked hard in relationship. I've worked hard to, find my true sexual self. I've worked hard to find my spiritual self, and it's hard work. I wish it was easier, and it is the work that all of us must do. And apathy, depression, anger, it's actually part of the journey. And it doesn't mean that you've done something wrong. It just means, okay, that's your speed bump right now in the road. And you got to get over that speed bump. And one of the ways we get over that speed bump is to band together with like-minded and like-hearted others, to band together to be in conversation with people, particularly men, who uplift you. And, because men have been taught to freaking compete with each other like crazy. I was raised as an athlete, and like men to me were just a competition. And, I had a couple of friends and always had my good friends. But if you like bump into guys on the street or something, I'm suspicious. They're dangerous. Can I take this guy? Can he take me? What's going on here? And we have to, I believe, push the pedal to the metal on brotherhood. We've got to push the pedal to the metal on really getting that, no matter how different we are, we're really the same on so many levels. We got the same basic needs. So many of us have the same basic wants, and we got to work hard to actualize ourselves in this world. It's just our task.
Yeah, we can't do it alone. It's like we really got to open up and be willing to help out a fellow man.
In a big way, and it's part of it for me is I'm always asking the question, what would I have wanted when I was young? What was the conversation I would have wanted to be in? And because I wanted to know about like money. I wanted to know about sex.
Right.
I wanted to know about like, why are some people more successful than others? Why are some guys just happy? How do I get that? And it's just we're kind of thrown into this world, and you have to sort of figure it out on your own. And that's where we got to change the paradigm. Is you don't have to figure it out on your own anymore. You got to do the work. And a lot of times that work is very interior. It's done with self. And I think, I think that a big part of the equation that we often miss for me, and this might be a dirty word, but we have to get into the spiritual aspect of things. And I don't mean religion, but I mean that if you're going to look at the world as it's just a bunch of random molecules thrown together by an accident of evolution, and there's no meaning and there's no higher intelligence, then essentially you're probably screwed. Because the world is going to feel meaningless, life is going to feel meaningless, and the reality is there is a greater intelligence. And the problem is religions have been beating the shit out of each other for eons of time. And religion has really given a higher power and a greater intelligence a bad name. So I think we're living in a time when we're reconnecting to that power of the universe that is so grand and so beyond our imagination. And honestly, one of the ways that a lot of us connect with that is through drugs. If we knew all of the famous people out there who were profoundly influenced by things like LSD or ayahuasca or mushrooms, it would blow your mind. Steve Jobs, the creator of Apple Computer, was very public about it, how LSD changed his life and opened up his mind. And you have an Apple Computer, if you do, courtesy of an illegal drug, which expands consciousness and helps the nervous system tap in to another frequency of the universe. There's all different realities going on. There are all different frequencies. And the material world that you see with your eyes is just one of those realities and one of those frequencies. And I think we become more powerful men as we start to have more facility to understand the multiple realities that are happening, the different dimensions that are always with us and right in front of us, but we're just not noticing it because we believe in the superstition of materiality only.
So using drugs as a way to really to look at the same picture, but view it with a new lens and maybe find some new meaning in that.
100%. I would suggest don't do a drug unless you are dedicating it to higher consciousness and exploration and digging deep. For sure, there's fun recreational things that we can do as human beings. Great. But a lot of what happens is any tool can be used to elevate us, and it could be used to harm us. What's a knife? Is a knife good or bad? Depends how you use it. You can use a knife and make an amazing meal and carve something beautiful. You could also use it to, destroy something or hurt somebody. So it all depends how you use it. Is food good or bad? Depends how you use it. Are drugs good or bad? Depends on how you use them. I was fortunate because I didn't really do any drugs until I hit my 30s. And by that time, I was ready. My body was in good shape. I had the right personal, emotional, mental tools to deal with, some of the challenges that can come up on a drug experience. Because oftentimes you can connect to amazing things through mushrooms, through ecstasy, Molly, through ayahuasca, and also those experiences can be very challenging. And it's good to have help in navigating it. But what I'm emphasizing is there's different doorways to the higher intelligence of the universe. So drugs are one doorway. Music is a doorway. Reading is another doorway. Being out in nature. Athletics for some people really takes them there. Sex can do it. There's so many different possibilities, but we as men, it is compulsory to explore your higher nature. And I'm going to say, don't waste another minute of your time thinking that all this world is what you can see with your two eyes and what you can touch with your fingers. There's something greater going on. And as we tap into that, all of a sudden you're in partnership with it. It's no different than discovering the internet. If you don't know about the internet, you don't have that resource. And you could be the greatest person and you just don't have that resource. If you don't get tapped into your connection to a higher intelligence, you just don't have that resource. And it's a freaking powerful resource.
All right. You got me going, thinking on a whole new level here. I feel like I'm in the Matrix right now, listening to this part right here. This is good. And let's dive deeper. I have a part of the show called the Knowledge Round where I want to ask you some rapid fire questions here. And so, Marc, are you ready for the Knowledge Round?
Let's do it, Andrew.
All right. We were all born completely unique. Your DNA has never occurred in the past and will never occur again in the future. This fact makes you unique, and there's a purpose behind this. There's a reason behind all of this. You have some great purpose that you need to fulfill for being here. And it's a shame if that purpose never comes alive and it goes into the graveyard, the richest land in the world. Don't let that be you. Create the life of your dreams, break through and reach your full potential. Check out how my retreats can transform your life and light a fire inside of you to go after your dreams and become the best man that you can be. Go to kfmretreat.com to learn more and apply. Again, that's kfmretreat.com. Welcome to the Knowledge Round, where the guests will be asked rapid-fire questions to give the audience invaluable pieces of wisdom to help transform their lives. Starting in 3, 2, 1, showtime. The first question I have for you is, what advice would you give to someone who's feeling kind of lost or unsure of their purpose?
If you're feeling lost or unsure of your purpose, I want you to hold the powerful question. I want you to form a question, and the question could be as simple as, what is my purpose in this world and in this life? Write it down, journal it, put it somewhere, paste it on your forehead, on your refrigerator, and I'm going to call that a powerful question. The answer is not going to come today. It might not come next month or next year even, but it's the kind of question you have to hold like a freaking pit bull in your mouth until it gets answered. And if you are vigorous in holding that powerful question and asking it every day and looking for clues, the answer will eventually be forthcoming.
I like that. And what was holding you back from becoming the man you are now today, Marc?
A lot of what was holding me back was self-pity and disappointment. I just felt sorry for myself. And I was disappointed. I was disappointed in, you name it, just how my life turned out, what I didn't have, what I wanted. And I just felt sorry for myself. And when you're walking around disappointed and feeling sorry for yourself, number one, you're the opposite of a chick magnet. Number two, you're the opposite of a success magnet. Number three, you're not very interesting to yourself. And when I started to realize, okay, I have to snap myself out of that. I have to start to surround myself with cool, happy people. I have to get help in any way I can. And I have to start being more positive. That's when my life started changing.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. And now it's clear that what you're doing and the work that you're doing, you care about, like it matters to you. Now, I find that when people are doing something that they really care about, that it's hard for them to charge money. So when you want to help someone and charging money for that, like what's your relationship with money and the work that you do that is so meaningful?
Okay, so money is energy. When you get that money as energy, then you're halfway there, meaning it's an exchange medium. Money is a representation of value. We, the collective we have a very skewed relationship with money. We have kind of a sick relationship with money. Money has become a god, and all money is, it's a representation of value. So there have been times when I was not making very much money at all, but I was very clear that what I knew and what I had to contribute had value. And you have to believe in your own value. The way to make money is to realize what your value is. You have to discover your value. You have to create value. It might mean a skill. It might mean a craft. It might mean whatever it is that you do, that you make, that you deliver. You have to affirm this has value, because when you value it, others can value it. When you value it, the universe gets behind you and says, yes, this indeed has value, especially if it does have intrinsic value. You know, I could say to you, here, buy this piece of paper for $1,000, and you look at it and you go like, you idiot, it's just a freaking piece of paper. It doesn't really have universal value beyond probably a cent or two. So I'm off base there. But you have to believe, first of all, in your value as a human being. Before, even if you haven't found your purpose, you haven't found your true worth, you have to believe that you're valuable as a human being. And then from that place, value can slowly start to come to you. So I don't love money so much as I love giving value. And I love receiving value back. It's an exchange. If you're in relationship with someone, you want them to love you as much as you love them. It's a value exchange, and it's fun when that happens. And when you give people value and they feel it and they go, thank you. Like our professional programs at the Institute for the Psychology of Eating, our professional training costs $7,000. And there are so many people who are hesitant to pay that money. And when they finally pay that money and they go through the program, I love it when they say, this is worth 10 times more than that. And I'm busy jumping up and down, cheering myself because I over-delivered. So in other words, I gave value.
That's such a good example of changing it to value. That I think a lot of people, even myself included, can struggle with money and charging for something that you really care about and like you want to help. And there's just like some resistance there.
I think that, Andrew, it's a natural resistance, and there's a certain honorability there because we want to give. We want to share what we have. And, you know, what if like somebody did a kind gesture, you know, you dropped your wallet on the street and you were holding a bunch of bags and somebody picked up your wallet for you, you know, and then what if they said, oh, that'll be $15, please? It's like, that wouldn't be so fun. So there's a part of us that wants to give, and that's very beautiful. And I think there's a part of us that needs to, here we go, the whole world is an illusion. You have to treat the illusion as if it is real. Money is kind of an illusion. It's not a real thing. A dollar bill, if you have a dollar bill in front of you right now, or do it after you finish listening to this podcast, look at that dollar bill. What does every bill say? It says, in God we trust. Money is not real. It's not backed by gold. There's no gold standard anymore. That was done away with in World War II. So money's just a piece of paper. It's all about a trust system. So what I'm saying is that we are living in a time when we have to get on board and do things that really give value. So if you are truly giving value from your heart, from your soul, and you know you're delivering something good, when you charge money for it, you can be proud because you've truly earned it. And then you can have a living, and then you can have a life, and then you can get the things you need, and then you can support yourself. Then you can take a nice vacation because you've earned it, because you've truly given value to the world. And here's the trick. Part of it is deserving. If you don't feel like you deserve, then you don't. So you have to feel like you deserve. And oftentimes we can have that sense of I deserve when you have that sense of, oh, I've earned this and I've given real value.
I like that. That's good. And you're so wise. Have you had, or can you name a mentor that has helped you on your journey, and how has this person impacted your life?
Woo!
Which year mentor?
There's been so many people and that I've kind of drawn from, just from a more academic standpoint. I've studied psychology, I've studied Ken Wilber, I've studied Carl Jung, I've studied James Hillman, I studied Sigmund Freud. I studied, some of the great poets. I've studied Rumi. I've studied nature. Nature's been a great teacher for me, really spending time out in nature, in the wilderness. Nature doesn't lie. Nature is very truthful. I've observed animals. Kind of the world has been my mentor in that way. I studied the works of Rudolf Steiner when I was young. These are all some esoteric characters. But I would keep on looking to go back to the source. Rudolf Steiner was doing his thing back in the 1920s and 30s. He was a scientist, but he was also a mystic. And to me, a real scientist has to be a mystic. Einstein, I've studied him and not his theories, but him, like as a person, what he was saying, what his philosophy of life was. Einstein was as mystical a character as you can ever find, because when you truly dive into science, you realize that the world is a magic place, that we don't know what the hell we're doing or what the hell we're talking about, that we're not really smart, and we know 0.01% of what's going on. But what I want to say is, in a short answer to your question about mentors, I do my best to let everything be my teacher. Basketball taught me. My marriage, even though it ended up in divorce, was a great teacher for me. My current relationship I've been in for 5 years, my girlfriend is a mentor teacher for me. Anything could be our teacher.
I like that. Looking at, so whatever we're doing, even if we don't even like it, can be viewed. There's lessons there. There's that could be a lesson for us in disguise.
I think, Andrew, always that's what's going on, and we're just not aware of it. It's like we're not always aware that we're in the school of life. And if you ever had the feeling like, why the hell do I keep getting into the same situation? Why the hell do I keep finding myself in the same kind of dead-end job, or with the same kind of girlfriend, or the same kind of relationship problem, or the same stuckness? Like, why do I keep coming back to the same thing? It's very simple. It's because there's a lesson that life, and I say life with a capital L, is trying to teach us. The wisdom of the universe is trying to teach us something, and we ain't learning it. And life is very generous in that way. It will keep giving you the same freaking lesson over and over and over again until we learn it. And that's how the brain learns, by the way. The brain learns by repetition. You and I learn language because we sang the ABC song as little kids like 100 times. You learn by repetition. You learn until you get it. So we as adults, we have to get aware and conscious and wake up and get with the invisible program. The invisible program is trying to teach us. And we have to ask the question, okay, What's life trying to teach me in this lesson? I keep having the same money issue. I keep having the same relationship issue. What's life trying to teach me? That's a powerful question. Again, it's not like you're going to get an answer right away, but we have to be willing to not necessarily look for the quick fix and instead do the slow burn, because that's what's going to really build our muscles. That's what's going to build us personally, emotionally, spiritual, is being willing to hang in there until life delivers. But we kind of have to meet it halfway. We got to find our own fire, and you got to find ways. Once you find your little flame, you got to fan it a little bit. You got to give it some oxygen. You got to find out what enthuses me, what gets me up, what gets me going. Even if you're feeling apathetic and feeling depressed, what helps me come out of that? It could be the simplest things. It could be going to your power spot. It could be hanging out with certain people. It could be watching something on YouTube that uplifts you. I don't care what it is, but what's going to uplift you and start to expand your consciousness? Because, Andrew, you mentioned before The Matrix. I think that movie is so brilliant. It's probably one of the best metaphors for our times. We live in the Matrix, and we have to exert a tremendous amount of courage to step out of the Matrix and find our power at the same time. And it is completely doable, and it is hard. It is epic work. And that's what makes for a warrior, and ultimately that's what makes for a good king.
Wow. And that's taking taking the whole knowledge on to a whole nother level. This is good. And now let's see how far we can take it with this question here. And it's more of a scenario. And it's this. It's imagine you had 60 seconds with your 20-year-old self. What would you tell him to do? And what would you tell him not to do?
Oh, man, I love this question. Here's what I would say. And this is the answer that came up immediately. Stop doubting yourself. Stop doubting yourself. Stop doubting your journey. And start believing that everything that happens to you is happening for a good reason, and it's the fertilizer for your growth. So even when life feels like it's a bunch of shit is fertilizer, and it helps us grow. And it's your job to just keep remembering that all these situations that you're complaining about, that feel too difficult, that feel too hard, is part of your brilliant journey, is part of your brilliant story, and it's the movie of your life. And as hard as it might seem, it has a beauty in it, and it has a wisdom in it. And if you keep listening to it, and if you keep following the clues, because your life is a treasure hunt, you keep following the clues, you're going to get there.
I like that. And anything not to do, or leave it at bay?
Anything to avoid. Yeah, avoid hanging out for too long in the land of apathy, and in the land of stupidity, and in the land of numbing yourself out. Don't stay too long there. Sometimes we need to numb ourselves out a little bit because life gets hard, and I need to sit in front of the TV and drink beer and do stupid shit, and that's okay. Don't pitch your tent there. Don't live there. Don't stay there for more than a week. Ideally, don't stay there for more than a day. And in actuality, as you get older, don't stay there for more than 5 minutes. But when you're younger, sometimes it takes a little longer to get out of a funk. But all I'm saying is remember to not stay there so long, and do everything in your power. Marshal all your resources, all your friends, all your loved ones, whatever it's going to take to help bring you out of your own ashes so you can slowly rise as your own phoenix.
All right. You're bringing it home. You're nailing, you're dropping a ton of knowledge here. And I know my listeners, and I know that you're hitting, you're touching them at the core of some of the challenges that some of these men are experiencing. And so this is on point. This is really good content. And now to kind of just summarize some of the main points, or to even reflect back on where you were struggling from doctor to doctor at a very young age, to the point when you decided not to become a medical doctor, and then now to where you are in this moment, giving advice and inspiring thousands of men on this podcast. What would you say is your philosophy on life and success?
Especially when it comes to men. So I'm going to just say this man to man. My philosophy of being a man in this world is that men are powerful. Men are amazing. Men are dangerous. And when I say dangerous, what I mean is there's a lot of men out there who control the deal, who control the matrix, who control industry, who control government, and they ain't so good. They don't have your best interests at heart. And one of the ways that the world is dominated and controlled, so you end up in debt and you end up in a dead-end job and you end up wondering, why the heck am I, at the bottom of the food chain? One of the reasons is because we get messages from the media, from the world, that you ain't powerful. And the reality is we are radically powerful. And when I say we're dangerous, we are dangerous to the dark side. And my philosophy is you got to push the pedal to the metal on consciousness. You got to push the pedal to the metal on what's good in the world. You got to push the pedal to the metal on the light. Because essentially I don't even want to say it's a belief. It's what I learned about planet Earth, studying it, is we've incarnated on a warlike planet. There's 100 wars going on right now all around the globe, at least. We live in a warlike planet. We've had 2 world wars in this last century. So there's a battle between light and dark, and you have to choose a side. And I'm highly suggesting you choose the side of the light, and you choose the side of what's good, and you go for it. And you find out what's good in you. You find out what's good in the people around you, and you uphold that, and you acknowledge it, and you help it grow, and you help nurture the spark in yourself, and you help nurture the spark in others. And that's when your true power starts to really emerge. The power of light, the power of consciousness is unreal in what it can do. I personally stuck to that philosophy when I wasn't very successful at all, when I was struggling personally, emotionally, financially. I make millions now. I do really good work in the world. I'm surrounded with great people. I've worked to get there, but I've earned it from the perspective that I followed the good. I looked for what was in the matrix that was the good, what was the higher power in it all, and how do I tap into that, and how would that higher power guide me? Once you start to hook into that, you'll never turn back.
Wow. Just taking a moment to really let that sit in. And this has been an incredible show that has delivered on all fronts. That concludes the knowledge round, Marc. And so briefly, what's getting you out of bed in the morning today? Like, what are you really looking forward to? What are you creating right now in this moment?
I have 2 books that I've written, and my last one was written 10 years ago, and I've been wanting to write one every year since 10 years ago.
Okay.
And for some reason it hasn't happened, and I finally have carved out the time and the energy to do it. So what's getting, writing is just a passion for me. I just love it. And the fact that I can write a book and it will get published and I will get money for it and it will get sold, and I could say things that I think are uplifting and people might benefit from it, that is just tremendous for me. What gets me out of bed in the morning, I've got a 22-year-old son, and I want to see him succeed and grow into his fullest expression. That gets me out of bed. I have an amazing girlfriend she's just wonderful. She's brilliant. She's beautiful. She really just has made me a better man. And just waking up next to her and spending another day with her, that gets me out of bed. But in general is having a purpose in life that is everything. You got to find your purpose, and it's okay if you don't know what it is right now. It's totally okay, but you have to want it like you want nothing else. You got to want that more than anything. If we get distracted, well, I'd rather make money. Maybe you could do that. But it's easy to end up making money and you're doing purposeless things, selling stupid shit, not really contributing to the world. And oftentimes that ends up backfiring. When you find your purpose, there's a damn good chance it means that you're going to be doing something good in the world.
When you said that, it brought up one of the quotes that I remembered from Steve Jobs' biography when he was trying to headhunt the CEO of Pepsi, and he told him, do you want to sell sugar water for the rest of your life, or do you want to come with me and change the world? And that day he quit, joined Apple.
I remember that. I love that. It's kind of fascinating how you picked that out. The first time I heard that, I went, yes.
Yeah, this has been a really good, refreshing interview, and I love that you understood the audience and that you were talking about issues about that men experience. And obviously, this is a men's show, so it's been very spot on, and I'm very excited to publish this episode and release it to my community. But before all the guys listening, we can follow up with Marc at psychologyofeating.com. And Marc, do you have any other links that you'd like to share?
Yeah, if you want to learn about the specific work that we do, which isn't really men's work, it's all work around, eating psychology, psychologyofeating.com gets you into, that part of my universe. You could look me up on Facebook. I've got a couple of Facebook pages there where, I engage a little more personally. But, psychologyofeating.com, that's kind of where I live. And Facebook, I will definitely eventually respond to, anybody that reaches out to me there. So Marc David, it's Marc with a C, MarcDavid. And not the weightlifter. There's like a weightlifter guy named Marc David. And for the longest time, people kept emailing me from my past saying, gee, Marc, you really look good. And I'm like, oh, that's not me, Yeah,
I'm on Google right now. I just did that. And also, guys, check out Amazon. You can just Google his name, Marc David, and you'll see his books pop right up on the number 1 and 2. So, Marc, this has been a phenomenal episode. I'm so excited to publish this and impact tens of thousands of men around the world with just our simple conversation that we had today. So I really appreciate the time that you've given us.
Thanks so much, Andrew. And I'm loving what you're doing. And I think, this podcast and your mission is so needed and so valuable. And that's why I was really looking forward to this, because this is as important as anything that we can do as men. So thank you for your work.
Thank you for listening to the Knowledge for Men podcast. Hundreds of interviews and 1 million downloads later, we're continuing to build an international movement, and we've just started. So if you enjoyed this episode, go ahead and leave a review in iTunes. It really helps to grow the podcast. Guys, 2015 is the official year of living with purpose, where every day you do only the things that matter to you. You wake up, live with purpose, and take massive action towards the life you want. Check out kfmfree.com to get free tools I've created to help you crush life. Again, that's kfmfree.com. This is your host, Andrew Farabee, and I'll see you in the next episode.